You are now in the presence of a king.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome once again to the Blerds podcast. I am your host, Paladin, joined always with me by Calibus and Marky Mark. First off, I want to say a very special Happy Father's Day to all the kings, all the dads out there. We celebrate you. Good job. Father's Day doesn't get as much hype as Mother's Day. I've always felt that,
I was just
even before I became a dad,
Yeah. I was just discussing that with my wife. I saw something online that somebody was like, Father's Day ranks number 20 on the list. So first is Christmas is number 1, Mother's Day is number 2, and then Father's Day is 20. So
I knew it was low. I didn't realize it was that low.
Okay, Arbor Day is 16. And what the hell is Arbor Day?
Wow.
Columbus Day is 12. But
oh man,
these rank higher than Father's Day.
We gotta get a movement start. Let's get
we damn sure do.
Million dad march out there or something.
Hell yeah. Nobody even understands. I mean, I was looking at Plies online. He was like, he checked into a hotel yesterday. He's like, "Are you guys busy for the holiday?" And the lady was like, "What holiday?"
Oh, come on.
He was like, "I don't know. There's no holiday."
Wow. Man, my heart. I was in a good mood. Now, thanks. Now I've become depressed again.
Makes no sense.
Well, look, we're gonna pick up our spirits with some drinks and some talks about, since this is Father's Day, we're gonna do a special Father's Day episode of the Blerds and talk about all the dads from the media, from the comics, from the movies, from the games, wherever we can think of them from. Those watching us live, if you got some, drop them in the chat. Some of your favorite dads from anything, really, right? It doesn't have to be fiction. It could be something real world based. They did something on it or whatever. But I think the three of us might focus more in the realm of the comics and the characters and this, that, and the other. Because you know what, we hope they would epitomize the idea of a great dad. But I'm gonna start us off, right, because I have that right. So normally I would give it to brothers here, but I was thinking about this earlier, and he's not a great dad, but he did become one. And I was like, you know what? His son's going to have some issues, but he's trying. And that would be Dad of War, Kratos.
That's an interesting one.
That's the last person. Like, he did a lot of seed sowing, let's say. Sowing his wild oats. But then he popped up with, which, now granted, I've watched a lot of people play the game. I know the whole story. I haven't actually played it myself yet, because it's one of those RPGs. I've got games I still don't finish. Like, I'm a game unfinisher, unfortunately. So it's just I love them, but I'll never finish them. But I was just like, man, okay, I really need to play it so I can figure out where this boy came from. Like, I understand where he came from, but I don't really understand where he came from. So that's first on my list is Kratos, because it's like, who goes from slaying gods to trying to slay homework. It's just like, what's going on there? So, gentlemen, which one do you want to pick up next? Mark,
So what I would say, I'm going to do, it's kind of like a double, but let's go with Jor-El and Kent. What's his name? Jonathan Kent, because they raised Jor-El gave up Kal-El so he could actually survive the destruction of the homeworld. And then Jonathan Kent taught him how to be a man as an alien. He is the most human character you'll ever see in a comic book. So those are my two choices for a great dad.
It's funny you mentioned Jonathan because me and my girl were literally just talking about him because we were watching the Super Sons movie,
Okay.
the DC animated one. Neither of us had seen it yet, but I know about it. And so we were in the middle of watching it right before the show, and I was thinking, like, oh yeah, Jonathan Kent. He was, yeah. That's why we have the Superman we have, because because a good man in his life.
Yes.
All right, Calibus. Well, you next.
Well, I am going to go with the Arkham Knights game, Thomas Wayne. At the beginning, you hear his voiceover telling his son, Bruce, be kind to Gotham. Treat it as if it were family, for it is family. Don't spend the money on luscious cars, and then here comes the Batmobile, on outrageous clothes as he's suiting up with the thing. And he says, in death, I will love you forever. Your father, Thomas. And that is devotion. You know what I mean? For a father to leave that note for his son like that. And then, of course, you can go ahead and flip it over to the Flashpoint. Thomas Wayne, after seeing the death of Bruce Wayne, becomes Batman. Although he is a vicious Batman with drink.
And them heaters.
He's still doing it. Yeah, he's still doing it for his son. You know what I mean? So that would be from the video game now. Now, the other versions of him, we really don't get to know him. And of course, now they've changed it now where Thomas was part of the criminal underworld and he wasn't as clean and squeaky good as he supposed, and I kind of hate that they want to flip it on his ear, but I get it. There are no real good storytellers or writers anymore, so we're stuck with hacks who basically want to come in here and ruin something else because they don't have anything brilliant to add to a saga, which still blows my mind. But that's what I'm going to say. That's where I'm going to go.
Okay. Now, I got a question for y'all. It's something I was pondering earlier. And it's funny you mentioned about bad writing. So do you think that, and it goes in line, Mark, what you were saying about where Father's Day is ranked, like right? Now that's granted, that's not necessarily indicative of people's opinions of fathers in general, right? It says something, but this is not the show for that discussion right now. But do you think, well, it sort of is, but do you think that, the fathers, the dads, do you think it's written in such a way where it captures the essence of what it is to be a dad? Like the good, the bad. I mean, because I don't think from what I'm thinking of, because then I started thinking about Magneto as a dad. I'm like, oh, well, I mean, he wasn't, the greatest father either, Quicksilver, Scarlet Witch, whole mutant power kind of thing,
Well, even with that, Magneto is Malcolm X. Okay.
Yeah.
By any means necessary, because he's tired of, my kind being hunted down, da 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 da. Jonathan Kent gives us a overpowered being and makes him human. Without that growing up in Kansas with those values, we get what was that
Red Sun Superman.
No, not the Red Sun Superman. That the one with the kid with the red cape.
Oh, Blackburn.
Brightburn, right? So we would get a Superman like that. It's that, but again, sadly, we don't live in that 1930-ish to 50-ish world anymore. And now the writing reflects that. Okay, so we don't have that, apple pie and that thing. Everybody wants to. For me, everybody wants to do this, like this gray Jedi thing. I want to be good and evil, and I just don't want to be all good. That's not the point, especially if you have a high-powered individual who could basically fly up, fly down to the core of the center of the earth, destroy the core, and still survive it and destroy everybody else on it. There's nothing we could do that could truly stop Superman. And I'm a Batman fan, and as much as I love to say Batman whipped Superman's ass, if Superman flew up into space and looked down on Earth, there he is. It's over. It's done. It's over. Okay? I'm a Batman fan. You can't tell me Batman is walking around with a satellite aimed at kryptonite as soon as Superman get up there and is tracking him, so it won't happen. It's just not feasible. Superman, and if I was Lex Luthor, I would be like that. That's the greatest threat that we have to this world because he is unchecked. And that's where you get this balance of power. But the raising of that child through a nurturing family. But here we go with monsters. Was it Monsters and Gods?
Gods and Monsters. I was actually just watching that today. So
Superman is raised by immigrants.
Yeah.
Mexican immigrants.
Immigrants. But he's
who
also
are treated
not,
poorly.
But he was also not, that is not Kal-El's son.
Yeah.
That is General Zod's son. So it's a totally different character raised by immigrants with a totally different mindset of how he's going to handle the world.
Well, I mean, you got to admit, exposed to aggression, I guess.
Well, not only that, but if you're treated poorly,
I
mean, we see all these things like, how society you get treated, like in the Joker movie, you treated him poorly. He's got mental illness, and now he lashes out, and now we're all shocked. You know what I mean? The dilemma of heroes with their fathers, that guiding force that is maybe missing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, and what about like even father figures? Like, let's take Uncle Ben types, right?
Yeah.
Like not Peter not being his son, but definitely father figure, right?
Yeah.
Uncle Ben is the unsung hero of Marvel, and he's the only one who don't get to come back.
Yeah.
You kill Uncle Ben is dead, right?
Yeah.
Uncle Ben, I guess there was one, I don't remember which timeline, but he is Spider-Man, and Peter passes away. So, that's one thing where he's actually the person that Peter tells him with great power comes great responsibility. And he goes out and fights in that type of situation.
You think about I mean, that's I think about all the mentorships of these heroes, right? And then I think of, and I hate that I'm going to say this, Reed Richards. I don't think he's a good father to his son.
I just Mr. Fantastic. I was like, what y'all think about him?
You know what I mean?
Yeah. He's not a good father. He's not a good husband. He's not even a good person.
Well, look, I mean, he steps out. Matter of fact, what kills me was because I did not realize what the Venture Brothers were doing. If you have not seen it, Paladin, this show is called The Venture Brothers.
Okay, yeah.
And it's a spoof on Johnny Quest and superheroes.
That it came on. Does it still come on Adult Swim, right?
It doesn't anymore. The series is over, and they had a whole big movie. This was one of my favorite things because they do the whole Mr. Fantastic thing where he loses his wife, and I didn't pick up on it until years later, and I'm like, oh my God, they did this, because Sue Storm goes off with Namor.
That's when she had her first child was with him.
So, you know what I mean? But
I mean, that's the other side of it, I guess, is like, hey, okay, if you, I mean, Reed was, what was his problem? Was it his arrogance? Like,
he's so brilliant, he didn't feel like he needed to associate. I mean, I think he's detached from society when you look at him. he only thinks about how to solve problems. He doesn't spend time talking to anybody else. And then if you even look at when the Fantastic Four was originally written, it was written that he and the Ben Grimm, they had to fight each other for the affection of Sue Storm. But then they changed Ben Grimm to be with whoever he's with now, and that's where that story differed. But they argued and fought all the time over Sue, which was more so than what they do now. But then, like I said, he totally just doesn't care about her the way I look at it. Until she's gone, that's pretty much the way it seems.
But isn't that the way it is, guys? I don't need her. Then she's gone. Oh my God, where is it? I can tell you now, I can complain about my wife, but the moment she 2 or 3 hours out of this house, I'm like, damn, I miss my wife. I can't believe it. You know what I mean? And then when she tells me I'm on my way home, I'm like, oh, you always come home early. It's a damn lie. I miss her. You know what I mean? But it's crazy. It's just crazy. You know what I mean? But I mean, so if we're going to go say father figures, we did Uncle Ben, Alfred Pennyworth.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And not only to Bruce, but to Dick.
Yeah.
To Jason Todd. To Damien.
Yeah.
The only one he hasn't really been a mentor to or a father figure to is Duke Thomas. And the spoiler girl that was Robin.
Oh, yeah.
From the movie that
she would have been from the graphic novel.
Right.
Yeah. There was a time that she took over right after Tim Drake. She takes over being Robin. We get our girl Robin again because that's what everybody wants. They want a girl Robin. And you know what? I think it'd be cool if we got one, but I need my girl Robin to be like Batgirl, Cassandra Cain, or Cassandra.
Yeah.
But I mean, I want her to talk, obviously, but I want her ruthless. I want her, you know what I mean? I want her with that chip on her shoulder because she is a girl and they all think that she's easy to take out. And then she just beats them brutally. I don't know what it is about a woman that will beat you down, that I find that's the way that character should be. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say that you find very attractive and kind of does.
That's kind of funny. I mean, I need that woman to be in her feminine nature. You know what I mean? Because for me, that's power. Because if my wife looks at me a certain way, that's it. You know what I mean? I'm like, damn, all right. What I got to do now? What is? She doesn't have to say nothing. She doesn't have to yell. She doesn't raise her voice. All she's got to do is cut me that look. And I already know. You know what I mean? It's a done deal. Yeah. That's why I always say when I hear guys are, my wife ended. Dude, you're never going to win. Even if you think you win, you don't win. Just let it go. You be happier. We're ranked number 20 on the holiday scale. Father's Day ranked 20. So you don't win.
Oh man. And so I was digging through Reddit earlier, just kind of seeing what some other folks were talking about and stuff like that. Some folks brought up Wally West as a really good dad and what he did for his kids. Trying to save them and everything.
Yeah. Well, I mean, him the wife and the twins. I mean, that's again, as fathers, that's what we always do. Yeah, we sacrifice, clothes, shoes, money, time, your sanity, your sleep.
Yeah.
That's why I ain't got no hair now.
We don't get that recognition, though, do we?
No. And what do you get for Father's Day? Drawers and socks. My kids used to bring home, they would go to the dollar store. One came back home with a level.
A level?
A level. And my one son would always get me a screwdriver kit. You know, that one screwdriver with the interchangeable head every year for like 4 or 5 years. It was like, You go, ooh, this is like the one I got last year. And it's right over there. I'm going to put this one with this one right over there. And then I got like 4 or 5 of them. And it just, yeah. But Wally West, what about, oh no. Yeah. Well, that's a bad example. Never mind.
Well, look, bad examples count too. There might be a dad, but I mean, we already had Reed.
Dark Side.
Look, I mean, okay, facts.
Dark Side.
He's a horrible dad. I don't know though. He traded his son to another god so that they would have peace. That was good, but yeah, no, he's still a horrible dad.
Yeah. Thanos, horrible dad.
Yeah,
adopted dad, but still horrible.
Yeah, I mean, well, when you mechanicalize one of your daughters.
Yeah,
yeah,
because she loses.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
I get to think if my dad did that to my brother every time I beat him in something, then yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. What was
okay.
it?
Well, what do you say about Darth Vader then? Was he a good dad?
Now he didn't know his kids existed until the end.
Oh wait, no, he knew at the end of the first movie.
Yeah,
Luke Skywalker was his son because he started hunting him down. As soon as he found out his name, the Force is strong.
Oh yeah, and Boba Fett is the one who gave him the name. Well, in Legends. So.
Yeah, but
I don't know how Disney gonna do it, but
I have no idea. But
yeah.
Maybe Darth Vader is more one like the complicated dad. It's like, man, my dad. Relationship with my dad's complicated. So we have some things we need to work out.
I'm gonna cut your hand off. We'll that way.
Well, he was teaching him a lesson now.
I mean, some fathers and sons box, others use lightsabers. It is.
Chopping off hands. We'll get you a mechanical one, just like Daddy. You'll be fine. You'll be fine.
It's gonna be all right.
Take a lap. Walk it off.
Build character.
Build character.
So then, if you're going to talk about the ultimate father, Jango Fett.
Oh yeah.
All the clones.
I was gonna say, does that count though? Like,
well, Boba.
Thousands of
okay, well, Boba, yeah. Because I forgot about Boba because I was thinking about just all the other clones. I'm like, but I mean,
and then you could say kind of Omega too. I mean, because
he had nothing really to do with her at all.
Well, they manipulated her genes. She's part of that batch.
Yeah, but she didn't know him. He never associated.
No, I'm just saying, but still, I mean, that's a deadbeat dad, right? So you father some kids, you don't check in on them.
Well, that's true. Yeah. He had a special son. He had one child that he favored over the others.
Right? Deathstroke.
Yeah.
Wait, Deathstroke had kids?
Oh my God, yes.
He had a son and a
Jericho.
daughter.
Don't forget about Jericho.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And his kids had powers, major powers.
Yeah. They were all meta. Well, I don't know she was, but I know Jericho was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, we got here's a example of bad dad. Ra's al Ghul.
True.
I don't know. I mean, he's the demon's head. Tanya is. I mean, you know what I mean. I like Raish. I thought Raish was. You know what I mean. He raised his daughter in a cool manner. I mean, they own this secret organization. So he did steal her body.
But he also had other children in the past that when they got old, he would bring them back to his palace, and he would take care of them until they died. So he wasn't that bad of a dad.
Terry Crews.
Yeah.
Yeah, he took his own daughter's body. You're right. Bad dad. Yeah. That's your daughter's body. Come on now. And then you kiss Batman.
Oh,
what's that about? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's some identity stuff going on there.
No.
Well, then, if we're gonna talk about bad dads, you got to bring up Bruce Wayne and Terry McGinnis.
Okay, now let's talk about Bruce though. So, like,
Oh, he didn't even know he was that as his son,
right?
at that point. Yeah.
So then when Damien came, and he tried to be better.
Well, we're not just talking about Damien. Well, when he took
Terry McGinnis.
now, well, with Damien now, he went to hell and back to get Damien.
Yeah.
He even brought back his body. But I'm talking about Terry McGinnis from Batman Beyond.
Because he didn't even know that. He never finds out that that's his son.
Oh no, he does. Come on, it's Batman.
Well,
he knows.
Well, it's Batman, yeah. But I'm like, yeah, that's totally different.
You know what I mean? And then because he's, it's all about the mission. That's what I did love about Batman. So when it's all about the mission. One night can always make a difference. And to have him in the comic books, I'm too tired. I give up the mask, and now we got this great hunt for the cowl. And I'm like, Batman wouldn't do that. Why does he give up? And then after he takes the mask back, he gives it up again. Just like, who is writing this crap? Yeah. So that's when I stopped collecting those comics because it just didn't make no sense. And in September, Batman is restarting from #1, a new storyline, a whole new run. For those of you that are big Batman fans, September is your start date for the Batman #1. So you might want to check that one out.
Now look, I'm gonna switch it to anime real quick. Talk about the goat of anime, Dragon Ball. It's Goku, bad dad, good dad. Depends on who you ask, but I think we can all agree that
you say the goat.
No, Goku
about all that.
Vegeta's Piccolo's the goat, but
there you go, Piccolo. Okay, I can agree with you on Piccolo.
I'm talking about Dragon Ball in general, right?
Okay, all right.
But Goku and Vegeta both dads. Piccolo surrogate father.
Yeah.
Gohan became a dad, and then Gohan actually was a pretty good dad. He tried to, have a job and do all those normal things.
Trying. What you would think that, what you would think he'd be like, this is never going to work for me. I'm always going to be waiting for the next fight, so I better just. Anime wise. The bad thing about anime is like the main character that you get involved in, you never know who the father is. And when you find out the father, he's usually this either super badass or this super villain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's no characters like watching what is that? My Hero Academia. They don't talk about any dads on that show at all. But you do have the father figure with it. What's his name? All Might. He is a father figure to the character, so I would say he's not too bad.
But actually, they did talk about the only dad they did focus on in My Hero was Endeavor.
Yes, yeah, he
was complicated, like horrible, but trying to and which I did like that because, and this is one thing I was thinking about while we was talking in terms of like characters where like fatherhood, it seems like is an attachment to the character. Like let's say with Batman, like, oh, let's let Batman have a son, or let's finally give Superman a son or whatever. But where being a father is part of that character's makeup, right? So Endeavor, in his case, that was part of his makeup. It wasn't like,
but he only wanted to be he wasn't a father because he wanted to be someone that loved children. He was a father because I want to have somebody who's better than All Might. That was his whole thing. And he only married this girl because she's, ice. With the two of us together, we can have a more powerful son or daughter, whatever. And he showed no love towards his kids at all until the youngest one was born. But I don't think he was a good dad at all. He just was a father for the convenience of being a father.
I think he started becoming trying to redeem himself, especially once he found out one of the villains was his son, too.
They didn't even that's season 7 that we're in.
It was a little while. It was a little while. We had to wait a little while for that. But I like how they kept that arc, that thread going throughout. Yeah. It wasn't just like an offshoot, right? I saw someone mention Jim Gordon in our chat there.
Yeah.
Right. That I think his daughter, that was always part of his character, right? So I don't. Do you think it leans or gives a better weight to the character if them having children is part of their story and it doesn't really come across as like a by the way, kind of like a throwaway thing, right? Because any guy, like any guy could be a dad, say, hey, they had kids, they have a kid, all, but like
No,
for
any
it to be,
man can be a father. Only special men can be dads.
True.
You know what I mean? So, but with Jim Gordon, it really doesn't matter. Forgive me, Barbara. No one cares. No one cares that your father. You know what I mean? It's kind of a thing. She could have been, and they keep changing her origin story for a while, and then of course, then they want to try to make her ethnic. They want to half black, half white, or they make her kind of like Latina.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm just like, look, I get what you're trying to do. You're trying to appease a broader audience, because I have always said that DC was a white man's club. All right. And then you had sprinkles of chocolate chips here and there in this cookie. But I still feel that it's wrong for anyone to go in there and change the cookie when you could just give me
a new cookie,
another cookie over here. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to change these characters to fit that narrative. But it wouldn't matter for Jim Gordon. It wouldn't matter anyway. He's the police commissioner. If you want to doll off into his story, and then they do some terrible things for Jim. What does Jim do? Jim gets lonely and he cheats on his wife. And then she leaves him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then he gets Essex or whatever, the new girl. And then I think Joker kills her. I mean, it just, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Spawn was good.
But Spawn wasn't even a father. He was a husband. That child belonged to his friend.
Yeah, his friend. That wasn't his.
That's not his
he
son.
didn't have any kids before he died.
No, he had no kids. That child is a mixed child with the one guy and his wife. So no, Spawn was not a good father. Or no, he wasn't a good father.
No, I mean you gotta remember Al Simmons, man. We were talking about him the other day. The HBO special, and I love hearing Keith David's voice as Spawn. So every time I see Spawn, I think of that, because that HBO special was revolutionary. The way it came out, the way it was, the viciousness.
It was a good show. I love that show.
Cable, when he confronts Cable and he goes, what do they call you? The Don Juan of killers. And I was like, damn, you know what I mean? That dude was just tight. And then he went after the girl that took Cheyenne, the ice cream guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, see, the way he did him, Spawn is just one of those heroes that if you see him, that's your ass. Him, Judge Dredd, and the Punisher. You never want to see these three people come looking for you. With Batman, you get a beat down. With these three, you're getting killed. They don't care.
Yeah. Now that you bring up, I was going to say the Punisher. What do you think about him as a father figure?
Ooh. Oh, hell no.
But he avenged his family,
He avenged his family, but did he love his family? Yes. He was probably good to his family, but he's off doing all these covert things. And now he's just driven for vengeance and some type of warped patriotism. Because remember, he wouldn't fight Captain America. You know what I mean? And Civil War, he was like, no, because you're Captain America. I won't do it. I won't do it. I won't do it. And I was like, okay. So he scares me because, it's just like, the gun nuts that we have here now that want to wear the Punisher logo and, they want to carry their sidearm on and they want to strut inside the store with their gun on and and the moment I see that, I just sit there and I chuckle to myself because, you need that. You need that to be cool. You need that to walk around and I'm a patriot. And no, you're an idiot. You're an idiot. You know what I mean? You don't need all that. You know what I mean? That whole thing of strutting around and the Punisher logo on. And the guy that created that got pissed at the cops for using it. He's like, that's not what that logo is.
Right.
You know what I mean? So,
yeah.
And for those of you who think that I'm anti-gun, Calabas is packing heat. So, no, I'm not. I'm just not an idiot walking around strutting and letting everybody know that I'm doing all this. It's crazy. Ludicrous. But he's... Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to bring up Hayachi. And by no means am I saying he was a good dad, but
he what is his ultimate goal, though? What is his ultimate goal?
Hell, I don't know. Make a strong fighter.
But wouldn't you want that for your kid? You don't want to.
Yeah, but like I want my son to be strong, right? I want him to be able to defend himself, defend others. I'm not gonna go throw him off a cliff though.
Was that Homelander?
Son, go climb back up if you. I'll be here waiting for you.
Well, that's Invincible. That's Invincible too. I mean, Homelander, he threw his son off a roof, hoping his powers would kick in, and them being very disappointed when they didn't. Oh
no, the boys.
Yeah, the boys. Yeah,
Homelander. But speaking of Invincible, Omni-Man, bad dad.
Oh yeah. Well, I don't know though, because he did when he had the other son. He was like, he called his other son and was like, "Hey, I need you to come get your brother and take care of him." So I don't know. He was better with that kid than he was with the first one, So
I think it's that weakness of not, when you see that, when you finally, you're like, man, he ain't gonna be nothing like me. I remember when I was playing football and I got hit, and I was like, oh fuck no, this ain't for me. You know what I mean? I was like, my dad was like, oh, come on, get out here now. I'm like, no, because now I want to throw hands, and no, I don't. I'm not here to be hit on. You know what I mean? Because that's not my nature. I get hit, I automatically want to hit back. Mistake or not, or oh, I'm sorry. Me too. So, you know what I mean? But I remember that look. I remember that look in his face when he was like, what are you quitting for? I don't want to get hit no more. Oh, come on. No, that's not for me. So, I think of that meme that we all see where he's like, just think. Where the dude laying up there all
think.
So I got one for you guys. What do you think about Captain Kirk as a father?
Oh, whew. Well, look.
Yeah, that's facts.
He loved David.
He did.
Carol made him stay away. Carol, I did what you wanted. I stayed away.
Yeah.
Okay. And Carol obviously didn't tell him who his father was.
Right.
So I can shift that over to her. But as for him, it's Captain Kirk. He would have loved, like he said, he would have wanted his son by his side, teaching him the ropes. Now, being Captain Kirk's son, that's a dangerous thing to have.
Yeah, maybe a little bit stressful. Again, one of those complicated relationships.
Picard too.
I was just about to bring him. Picard had a son. Yeah.
Yeah, he told his son that Starfleet was the only family he ever needed, and his son was like, "Well, damn, okay."
Yeah.
Yeah. So
okay. Look, perfect. One of the greatest dads, Captain Sisko.
Yeah, I was going to say Sisko.
Yeah, he was started Star Trek. I'm like, whoa, how come I went Kratos first. I should have went Captain Cisco.
Cisco was the man. And you know what I loved about him was he was still teaching Jake about being his descendants, being from Africa and all that other stuff. And he was there for his son. He always put his son first, but when his duty made him do what he had to do, he still tried to safeguard his son. Up until Jake decided that he was grown enough to stay on the station during the invasion and he had to leave, but that is the, the most positive. And you know what I think that was another thing that kind of bothered the network people too, that we had such a positive black role model with his son. You know what I mean?
He was a pretty good dad too, especially what was the episode when he got stuck and he would show up every few years.
Oh, in the time loop? Yeah.
Yeah. And then he finally figured out he's going to have to die for his father to come back at the time that he started. I thought that was great. That was a pretty good episode. I watched that with my wife. So I enjoyed that.
Yeah, I mean, Rom was a good father.
Mm-hmm.
Quark was the ass. But, but it's you rarely get to see that type of stuff, especially in the Star Trek show where the main characters, have an O'Brien with Molly and Keiko.
Yeah.
I love seeing that little interaction, an Irishman with this Japanese girl, and they have this little Irish Japanese kid, you know what I mean? I thought that was cool. You know what I mean? Again, Star Trek was one of those shows that just kept breaking barriers.
True. I was going to say, now we can talk about, the Orville with the two guys with their child.
Man.
Yeah, that was wild. That was wild.
That guy, I have to say, they were, I can't even remember the guy's name, but he was a fantastic
right?
father.
Or Bortis.
Yeah, I think it's something like that.
When she wanted to find out, their daughter wanted to find out she was born female, and they changed her, and he gave her the password, access so she can see that. I thought that was one of the best episodes of a non-Star Trek show out there. Yeah. That whole season was great, but that was a powerful episode, where she became a female again because she was born female. So,
that episode alone, how do you get a guy like Seth MacFarlane, who does all this sophomoric potty humor, and he has a show that's better than Star Trek? It is more Star Trek than Star Trek is.
But look, that's what happens when you have someone, he's like a Henry Cavill of sci-fi, whereas like someone who's really passionate, really loves the IP that they're inspired by and want to create something, want to iterate on it, on the baseline adventure, exploration, the crew, the core crew, and antics, some comedy here and there, because it is still like Seth MacFarlane, so that's part of who he is. So it'll be a lot of stupid stuff, but I think, and that's why I really like Orville too, because it really, I was like, man, this is like I'm
third season, though, man. They cut the comedy bullshit.
Yeah, because
third season,
seasons 1 and 2 were all about the jokes, but this one, when it came back on Hulu, it was just a good show.
It was strong, and thank God they said that they're still talking about it's not canceled. So there's still that hopes, but he's been doing so many other, he's been doing that TED 2 show and all this other stuff. But I would really like to go back with that. But I did like the dynamic of the two male, there's this whole just race of men.
Yeah.
I don't even know what they were. But I watched the episode. What was that?
No, I was asking my wife.
She doesn't know. But there was an episode where Bortis, he was into porn, and he was like on the
He
Oh
was
yeah,
a
I remember
On a
that.
holiday.
I was like, should I be watching? I don't want to come in right now and be like, what are you looking at? I'm not. It's looking at me. I wasn't watching this. I don't know what's
Dude,
happening.
Yeah, that was
you know,
That
something.
was wild.
that episode had me rolling, and
Yeah.
the other I just don't, the other alien was so upset, when you were in there with you've done had enough of all that, and I was just like, oh my lord,
Yeah.
And then there was that whole mating thing where they run around naked after each other.
Yeah, it was.
Well, I actually remember when
It's very
they had
strange.
the disagreement and the guy stabbed him. He was like, "Oh no, we're fine." Yeah,
Yeah,
that was our
that's the way we do, like Klingons, that's
Yeah.
the way we do things, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was like, okay,
But, I
What
mean,
will you? No, we're good.
a lot of that made sense. It was like, okay, it's a culture of all dudes. Yeah, that's probably. Yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
kind of, yeah, you know what I mean? But I just thought that was like the most that was the most Star Trek that we've ever had, that was so on the nose. All their shows, not all their shows, but most of their shows were hitting on social commentary disguised so well in sci-fi that you weren't preached to, you weren't made to feel stupid about. It was just there, like, there it is. How do you feel about it? And you're just sitting there like, damn,
Yeah.
Mhm.
But you don't get that interaction hardly anymore. We had Black Lightning that had 2 female co-stars and his daughters, and suddenly the show became more about them than it did Black Lightning.
Yeah, I when the show first aired, I loved that show because it was a good show. It was it was more DC than anything that was on at the time. You know what I mean?
Oh God,
So
yes.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. I loved the bad guy who was an albino. He
Tobias Whale, right?
Tobias. I loved him as a character. And to see Black Lightning get angry about things, and he couldn't do anything about it, then he went back to the suit. And then they started, like you said, coming up with the daughters. And, they were okay at first, but then the stories got too much about them and then too much about the boyfriend, what he was doing. And it just fell off for me at that point,
Yeah.
I couldn't do it anymore.
Mm. Look, one of the biggest dads we didn't talk about. Both he did have one son and then a surrogate father to a whole bunch of people. Professor Xavier.
I think Chuck is
I don't have
I calls him Chuck. Look, I call him Chuck. You know what I mean? I think that he's so absorbed with trying to keep Magneto and we have to embrace humanity and try to be friends with everybody versus keep your family close to you.
Yeah.
Let them out every so often, but keep them close where you can pull them back. Because the world, and I mean, I love that whole mutant, the world hates the mutants, and that's worse than the N-word, calling somebody a mutant. I love that. But Xavier, Scott Summers, Scott's father.
He was horrible, Dad.
Yeah, didn't he run off into space?
Yeah,
he went for that Milky Way milk.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So
all right, well,
I don't really know any of the you know what I mean? I mean, Luke Cage and Jessica Jones have a child together.
True.
But I never read much on that. I mean, I found that when I found out that we had a TV show with those two, and then they actually meet up, I'm like, are they gonna, and they have sex or whatever else? And I'm like, then they break up or she don't call him no more. And I'm like,
and then she ends up with she's sleeping with somebody else in the TV show, and then they don't utilize her powers. She was just, like you keep saying, it was a street level show, and they kept it street level. so they didn't utilize her complete power set in that TV show. So it was okay. I'm going to bring up one other father that everybody talked about in the 80s. Yeah. But
Bill
now,
Cosby?
Bill Cosby.
Oh no. There it is. All right, it's been a great show, ladies and gentlemen. Calvin, cut us off before we get canceled.
Here now, you can't get mad at Bill.
I mean, he was a great father in the 80s, you know.
Heathcliff. Wait.
Cliff Huxtable.
Cliff Huxtable.
Yeah.
I don't know why I struggled with that, but I did. It happened.
Were you drugged?
Wait. I don't know. My girl poured me another drink. I don't know what was in that bottle, actually. You know what I'm saying? So, yes, the character was a great dad. All right.
Yeah.
You know, we all wanted him to be our dad and Claire to be our mom. You know, I love how he used to get.
I don't know if I wanted her to be my mom, but I know I wanted her there.
I mean, there's that. Yeah.
Felicia Rashad. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Cliff was
the TV show. I thought he was a pretty good dad, you know. Besides what he's done in his personal life, what he did on that show was great.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing I can say about that. But I did want to bring him up because that was a great show.
He was the dad. He was the dad. He was what, number one for many helped save NBC.
Yes,
Look,
you know what I mean?
Let's throw in there real quick. Carl Winslow and Uncle Phil.
Oh, both of those. Uncle Phil, I think, was a fantastic dad. You know, especially everything that you look at what he did with Will, who wasn't his son. And I love the way he handled a lot of those situations, especially when Will's father showed up and was an asshole to him.
Yeah.
And I think that was one of the best episodes that they did on that show, was how he handled that situation with Will. So I loved him as a dad, you know.
And before you end this, you know you have to mention Din Djarin and Din Grogu.
At first,
I love how they did that. You are now Din Grogu, and I'm like, Din Grogu. Okay, all right.
Yeah, okay.
So he hunts him down, turns him in, then goes, I can't go through with this, saves the child, only to have to turn him over to his own kind, but still can't stay away.
Gets him back.
And gets him back and puts his feet up on his homestead with his kid playing in a little puddle. And that's how I like to remember The Mandalorian. Because if this movie bombs, I'm going to be so hurt.
I mean, but at what point is it just not just straight up kidnapping and then like grooming, maybe?
Well, I don't know. I mean, you know, the Empire been after this kid for I don't know wherever they had him at, and
true,
they found him when the Jedis took him away. Somehow he got lost in the shovel.
Yeah,
and then the Empire finds him. Then the Empire is hunting him down.
See, Jar Jar Binks saved his life, so
yeah, right.
Wait, that happened?
Well, it's not the actor. The actor that actually played Jar Jar. Yeah, he comes out to be this Jedi.
I haven't watched it because I don't.
Yeah, he's this Jedi that saves Grogu, and then you never find out what happens after Grogu after that.
No,
they never tell you because the memory starts to fade and whirl, and then he comes back into
Yeah,
but I still think I mean, he's a great father. He's training his son to follow in his footsteps. I love to see little Grogu with his little helmet walking around. Long as we don't get that Yoda gumball flipping around and flipping more, and I was like, all that flipping, that little dude would be tired. Come on.
That's
man. What other show would let a kid commit genocide by curing eggs? Well, you know,
It was funny.
it was eating the guy's kids up. Just,
Yeah, just sucking them down.
but
Look,
I think with being a father, with some of the video games that we have, and how would you sum up your experience being a father? Don't sugarcoat it.
hmm.
Paladin?
Look, I would say definitely not what I expected. Definitely not what I expected, but I think what I needed. Right?
Mm.
You know,
Cool.
like because you have an idea. You fantasize what fatherhood's going to be like if you want to be a dad, right? Because some guys, and that's perfectly cool. As a matter of fact, some dudes should not procreate.
No, you're right. You're right.
Let's just keep it 100 right now. But yeah, I mean, definitely not what I expected, but definitely what I think I needed. And I'm optimistic. You know what I'm saying? I mean, my kid's only 4. So I got a long ways to go.
Yeah.
But I'm really I'm looking forward to having conversations with him as a man. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
wonder what kind of man he's going to be. Because at this point, it's the possibilities are unlimited. So, and then what kind of guy is he going to be as a reflection of his origins? What's his origin story going to influence him to be? Then so
Nice.
it is what it is.
Marky Mark.
Well, I'm happy with how my kids have turned out. I can't complain. It's been a roller coaster ride. I would say that. There are things I'm happy about how they've turned out. Things I wish had happened differently, but all in all, I was happy to be a father. Love my kids to death. My youngest daughter's married now. Hopefully, at some point, she'll have a child of her own, and we'll see how that goes. But it's funny because she's still, even with her owning her own home, somebody came to her house to sell an alarm system, and she's like, "I need to talk to my dad. You got to talk to my dad."
My name's not on that order. Don't call me.
My dad's not here. I'm not going to talk to you without my dad being here. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Hey,
look, you better cherish that. When they stop asking for that is when
So that makes me laugh every time. And I've got to drive to her house to meet people because she didn't want to talk to me. So yeah, you'll probably experience that when your child is older as well. So just think about that, But other than that, I love my kids to death.
All right, well, I wanted to be a father, and just when I didn't think I was going to be a father, I got slapped with, "You're a dad." My daughter one day was mad at her biological father and said, "I want to call you daddy." I said, "Well, you can call me Uncle Carl. You can call me whatever you would like." She goes, "No, you're daddy." She pointed at me and told me what I was. And then Jinky and I had our son, and I know that this is going to sound strange, but it is harder to be honest and walk the straight and narrow than it is to be crooked and out there hustling and doing stupid shit.
Look, that does not sound crazy at all. The straight and narrow is always harder because resistance is always
you know what I mean? It is but to say it all again, my daughter now When she hit puberty, put me through the ringer. It just it almost destroyed me to the point where I was just like, oh my God, because she was the aggressor towards boys. And it blew my mind because I'm thinking all these dudes are after my daughter, and my daughter is after all these dudes. And finally, one day she came to me and she said, I apologize and I am so sorry for all the hell I put you through. And I just looked at her and I'm like, really? Are you really sorry? But we have a great relationship. It's my youngest that gives me the growing pains. But I would not trade it. I would do it all over again. Knowing what I know now, because I could handle it way a lot better.
Right.
But I would do it again. I mean, I have 4 grandsons.
Nice.
4 grandsons. And I spoiled them to death. And I just turn around and give them back to their parents. And they all look at me like, you never let us do that. Well, you're not my grandson.
Right. Thanks. Yeah.
I can do that. I can do that now. You know what I mean? And they know that. So it's been a great Father's Day. This is the first time without my father. And it kind of hit me in the feelers earlier. But when you said you still wanted to do a show, I wanted to do a show because being around you guys is one of the greater joys that I do get to have, especially doing this show. Paladin, I want to thank you for taking this show over and running it. I got Mark doing like 50 other different things, and he's my ear. So every day, Mark's phone is blowing up with Calibus's random thoughts and video stuff.
Oh no,
dude! I hit Mark of it. You gonna earn this job, man? I know I don't pay you but the t-shirts, but so it's always been a pleasure, man. To do this with you guys and to celebrate on Father's Day with you guys is an awesome gift. So I want to thank you for putting this show together and letting us do what we got to do.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I appreciate that, and I'm very happy to have done this. Father's Day. There's plenty of men in comic books. Not all of them are in comic books and media and entertainment and all that. But the fathers that are there, we talked about a lot of them, from real life TV sitcoms to, God slaying people. So we had a great time. Definitely enjoyed the conversation. It was great. Absolutely terrific. And we'll look forward to doing this. Hopefully we'll try to, maybe this might be an annual thing for us.
Oh, yeah.
Father's Day show. You know what I'm saying? Why not?
I like that.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
All right, everyone. Well, we have hit our mark. Yeah. Every year we're gonna see if we can push that number up and up and up until we're like number 2. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm fine being number 2. I love my mama, so I don't want to be like, okay, mama, y'all can have number 1. That's fine. Just top 5. Let's be in the top 5. I'll be good with Father's Day being in the top 5. All right, we're gonna see if we make that happen. Get a Twitter campaign going.
All right.
All right, everybody. Well, for Paladin, on behalf of Cosmic Portal and Calibus and Mark, we thank you for joining us tonight. We appreciate you, and check us out next time, June 29th. We'll be back with more topics, more discussion, more fun. We out.